I read 11 books in May. So first off, we're going to talk about all the analytics and like genres and stuff. So I read 4 romance books, 1 mystery, 2 fantasy, 1 fiction, 1 dark romance, and 2 thrillers. I feel like I really read a lot of different genres this month. Lately, I've been trying to branch out and not just read romance, which one of my goals this year was to read a lot of different genres, and I think I'm doing pretty good on that. I mean, I still read mostly romance, but I still read 5 other genres this month. That's pretty good. So I did read 11 books, but one of them was a DNF, but I'm counting it because I DNF'd it at 50%. And if I get to 50% or more in a book and then decide to DNF it, I'm counting it because I spent a lot of time on that book and I read a lot of pages. So don't hate me for that. I'm letting you know up front. So I don't count it in the rating because I didn't give it a rating, but I did count the amount of pages that I read, but I only counted half since I only read half. Does that make sense? So my average rating is 3.675 or 3.7 if you want to round. And then I read 3,389 pages this month. I feel like that's a pretty good amount, but I read some shorter books this month too, so I feel like usually it might be a little higher. But this is the first time I'm like doing all the analytics in my monthly wrap up, so let me know if you like seeing all of that, and I will continue to do that. Now I'm going to just talk about all the books that I read. So the first 3 books that I read were all in my reading books based off the cover video. So it is the Flat Share, Ready or Not, and Nora Goes Off Script. I'll quickly mention my rating and like my final thoughts on these. If you do want to see like my initial reactions and like my thoughts while reading the book, you can watch that video. But for the Flat Share, I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. I loved the fact that it was British. I don't read too many British books, and this definitely made me want to read more because I just loved the writing and like reading something just different than what I'm usually reading, you know, and like their little mannerisms and like the way they talk is different obviously than what I'm used to, and I just liked reading about that. And I loved the characters. They were so lovely and different and like fully developed people. Like sometimes we read books and the people are just like, they don't seem as real and as like, am I making sense? Like they just felt like real people to me. I don't know if anyone else would agree with what I'm trying to say here, but to me that's what it felt like. And then I really liked the sweet, simple romance that they had. Like it was like so pure. It was like built on a friendship and built out of kindness, and I just liked that a lot. And I really did like this book, and I gave it 3.75 stars, which I was debating not doing that because I was like, that's so annoying. But usually I try to just do 0.5 if I'm gonna do like an in-between rating, but hey, sometimes we get a 3.75 and it just feels right, and that's what felt right for this book. This book is about 2 characters who actually share a flat or like a room or like an apartment, is what you guys know. Why am I trying to explain what a flat is? I'm sure you know. Anyways, they share a flat because Leon, the guy, needs some extra money, so he's renting out the bed and like the flat during the nighttime because he works night shifts at a hospital as a nurse. And then Tippy rents it out because she needs a cheap place to live because her and her ex-boyfriend just broke up and now she has nowhere to live and she needs somewhere cheap and fast and quick, and she sees this ad and decides to go for it. So she's only there during the night and he's only there during the day, so they don't ever see each other. But they start leaving notes to each other like, hey, today's trash day, or hey, I have leftovers in the fridge, or hey, can you clean this up for me? Then eventually they start talking to each other through these notes and like learning about each other and having like more conversations, funny conversations, and then it just develops from there and you learn about their lives and you watch everything play out. Then I read Ready or Not, and this one, you guys, was so wholesome. Like every time I look at this I feel so happy, and every time I picked it up and read it I was so happy reading it. Like it just made me smile, and there's not that many books that I just feel so happy and wholesome while reading it, and this was exactly that to me. And it was funny as well, and I love the guy in this book. Like he is so sweet, and if you like acts of service you'll eat this up because I ate it up, and he does the cutest things for her and it's so sweet. So basically it is about a girl named Eve who unexpectedly becomes pregnant from a one-night stand, and you're literally just watching her life play out from like when she learns that she's pregnant, and you see like her friendships, you see like the support system she has around her. So she tells the father of her future child and they're not together, and it's just whole thing. And she is really close with her best friend and her best friend's brother who is also involved in her life, and you just kind of watch this play out and you're like, who is she gonna end up with? Is it gonna be the father of her future child, or is it gonna be this friend she's had in her life forever? Like you don't really know, but you also kind of start to know. So don't worry, it's not like a love triangle thing. And I just was so happy. I don't know how to describe the feelings I felt while reading this except for happy. I gave this a 4-star in that video, but I actually, since reading it, I still think about it and I still really like this book, so I'm gonna give it a 4.5 star now. It wasn't a 5-star just because like it didn't give me that feeling, but it gave me a really sweet, wholesome feeling, which is close to a 5-star, and then I still think about it, but I don't like obsess over it. I just think it was like, yeah, that was so cute and sweet and I loved it. So 4.5 star. I said I was gonna like be quick while I talked about these, but I just can't. Then last for that video, I read Nora Goes Off Script, which this one was really cute as well. It was also something different and it was like really short and sweet. I did have a few problems with it, but overall I enjoyed my time reading this. So it is about Nora, who is a screenwriter, and she normally writes movies for like the romance channel, like think of like Hallmark movies, those types of cookie cutter romance movies. She usually writes those, but instead she wrote about her actual life. Like she took inspiration from her experiences and her recent divorce and wrote it into an actual movie, and then they ended up wanting to film the movie on her property, and then this big time actor comes in to play the main guy in this movie, and he stays on her property, and then it just takes off from there. Like they start talking and he is really involved in her kids' lives because he's never done anything for himself. Like he's never gone grocery shopping. He never like goes to school pickup or like does any of those like activities that you do as a parent, and he just is like totally enthralled in her life and like wants to do everything she's doing and like all this stuff, which is really cute to see. And I also liked that the characters in this book were older, because usually I read like young adult like high school romances or when they're like in college or just like early adults. So I liked reading about older couples, and like her having kids and everything was a nice touch. One of the things that I just really did not like about this book, and like it was hard for me to get over, was the miscommunication that took place, and it actually was like a long part of this book, which made me really annoyed, and I was just like waiting for it to like wrap up and conclude and everyone to be happy, because I knew that was how it was going to end, and I was just like felt like it was kind of unnecessary to sit through like this whole thing when like I just knew the ending was gonna be happy and everything was gonna be resolved, you know? And as adults I feel like they should have been able to communicate a little bit better, but I do understand and like I get it, but it does drive me crazy when that happens in books. So I gave this one a 3.5, and it's really cute and sweet, and I'm someone mowing their yard? No. So I did give this one 3.5 stars, and I really did enjoy it, and it was funny and ironic that she writes these cookie cutter Hallmark romance movies and then she actually lives that. And I'm glad that I gave this author a shot, because I've never read anything by her, but I do have another one by her on my June TBR, so I'm excited to read more from this author. I think they're done mowing the lawn, so hopefully we don't have any more interaction. Okay, so it keeps like laying on the tripod. Let me literally show you. This is currently my view right now as I film this clip. One begging to be up here, one on the floor. Moving on, hopefully we can get through the rest of this video without more interruptions. But next I read One of Us is Back, which was the third book in the One of Us is Lying trilogy. I believe it's a trilogy. I didn't even know it was going to be a trilogy though till recently. I just like was scrolling through Libby on audiobooks and then saw that one and I was like, oh, who was going to tell me that was a thing? So then I was like, I have to listen to it and like complete the trilogy. Like I read those books forever ago, like way back when I started reading, maybe 2020? Maybe I read them in 2021, I don't know. But I was like, I just have to read it. And honestly, it gave me that nostalgic vibe from when I first started reading them. Like obviously it wasn't like the most amazing book that I've read, and I know back then I really loved those books just because they're so easy to read. The mystery was interesting, it kept me entertained, and I liked the romance that you would get in the book. I honestly feel like nothing happened in that book. Like the first maybe 50% or maybe less than that honestly, but I don't remember, was like a recap and like us getting reacquainted to the characters, which honestly was good for me since I haven't read the books in so long. But at the same time I was like, well, what are we doing now? The one thing that I did like about this book was that we get like flashbacks to Simon and Nate's, is that his, not Nate, see I can't remember people's names, Jake's. We get like flashbacks to Jake and Simon like from the past, like when they were friends, and like we get kind of like tea on like Jake's parents and stuff, and that plays into like the future timeline and what's going on in the future, because there's this like new game happening and people are actually disappearing and it's becoming a little bit crazier. It was like fine, I just wasn't that attached to it really. Like I was like, I just read it for the vibes and like listened to it to be entertained, and it was entertaining, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Powerful Less. that would be interesting. Then I read Powerful, which is the Powerless novella, and it follows Adina, who is Peyton's best friend, and Peyton is the main character in Powerless. And I really, really, really liked this. It made me happy. It made me sad. I also read this in a video. What video did I read this in? I read this in Swapping My Screen Time for Reading video, so you can go there if you actually want to see my reactions, because it is kind of crazy and kind of sad at the end. Which, like, you know, going into this book, like, what it is and what it's about and, like, what's gonna happen because you read Powerless. I can't really say too much about what this book's about because I don't want to give any spoilers for Powerless, but it is about Adina, who is like a seamstress and she makes all these beautiful clothes. And then it's about Mac, who you learn has a connection to someone who is going to be in the trials, and then they both kind of like find each other because they both know someone that are in the current trials, and then they kind of bond over that, and then you see everything else go from there. I loved these characters so much, and it was sad like when it was over because I wanted more. Like, I feel like we could have had more, and maybe it's just because I want more, but I felt like this was a little bit rushed. I know it's supposed to be a novella and it's supposed to be short and sweet, but I wish we had more time with these characters. But I did give this 4 stars. Like, it just hit me right in my heart. And I just love the Powerless world and everything about Powerless, so I did like this one. Then I listened to Tales from the Cafe, which is the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I'm not quite sure how many books it is, but this is the second one. And I also read this in my Swapping Screen Time for Reading, as well as the next book. But I really liked how all the stories in this one really intertwined and connected and came together, especially at the end with like all the themes and everything. And I love how the book itself is sad because of like the content and like why people go back. By the way, this book is basically about a cafe. It's basically like a bunch of stories. Like, I think there's 4 stories in this one of people who visit this special cafe in Japan that if you sit in this one seat, you can travel back in time, and you can only do it once, and there's like all these other rules that are involved in it, and you just kind of learn why these people want to go back in time, and you hear their story and like you see them go back in time and like what happens after that. So a lot of the circumstances are sad, but by the end of the book and by the end of like each story, I'm not left feeling super sad, like what did I read, like I feel depressed now. I'm left feeling like, oh, that was like really sweet, and I don't feel empty, like I actually feel full in a way, which is really weird. Like, you would think you would feel really sad and empty after reading something like that, but the way the author like tells the story and like is able to turn it and spin it into something positive and like inspiring is really nice to read. And I always like listening to these books, and I want to get the 3rd one soon. The last book I read for the Swapping Screen Time for Reading video was The Dead Romantics. I actually buddy read this with Baylee. I'll have her channel up here and down below if you want to check her out. She's so sweet, and honestly her reviews are so good, and she has such a good way of like articulating her thoughts. I'm always like, wow, I wish I could do that when I watch her videos. But yeah, we buddy read this, and unfortunately neither of us really liked it that much. I think I just had different expectations, and she said that like she doesn't think this author is really for her because she's tried another book by her. Also, she got spoiled for like the plot twist in this book, so I think that could have hindered her experience as well. But for me, I just thought this was like gonna be a cute little contemporary ghost romance, which like, yeah, I guess you could say it was, but really I didn't care for the romance at all. And like while reading it, I didn't see a point to root for the romance. If you read it, you'll get what I mean. So I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm here for the vibes and here for the funny writing because it is funny, but like I did not care about the romance. Basically, you're following Florence, who just one day unexpectedly gets a call saying that one of her family members has died, and she has to go back to her hometown to help with the funeral and everything. Oh, also, she can see ghosts. That's like a big part of this. She can see ghosts, so she goes back to her hometown, and then who would have thought she sees a ghost who she does not expect to see and does not know is dead. And then you kind of learn about her life. You learn about her childhood, like where she grew up and like the small town that she lives in, which I really liked reading about the small town, and like that vibe was really cute, and like the family. It also has like Adam's Family vibes, like they mention it a lot as well, I'm pretty sure. It was interesting. Like, I've never read a book like this, but again, I just was expecting like this great cute romance, and it really wasn't to me. It was very hard for me to connect to the characters in a romantic way. I also guessed the plot twist, which when I guessed it, I was like, oh, I'll actually like this book more if this is the case, and then it was, so I did like that, but at the same time I was like, what was the point then? I did give this one 3.5 stars because I liked it and I liked reading it. Like, it wasn't hard for me to read. I was just like upset that I thought it was going to be a contemporary romance, and it wasn't to me. Oof. Then I read Butcher and Blackbird, which helped me. I think, wait, did I also read that in that video? I also read Butcher and Blackbird. I forgot I read this in that video, but I also have funny reactions to like the content warnings and some of the other things that happen in this book, because if you know, you know. This book kind of scared me when I was reading the content warnings. I was not sure if I was going to like it. I don't usually read dark romances. I don't ever read dark romances actually, except the Mind FUCK series. I'm pretty sure it's dark romance. So I was like, let me just give it a try. Like, I need something different. And boy, was it different for sure. But I did like it. It was entertaining. It was funny. I liked the romance a lot, which I wasn't expecting. At first I thought it was going to be more insta love, so I was kind of getting put off from that, but then I learned that it actually wasn't, and I liked it a lot more. There were some gross, disturbing scenes, but I just kind of skimmed over the descriptions of those scenes. I was like, I don't really need to get all the detail, you know? I can get the gist, and I just read the dialogue. So I didn't think it was too gross or too gory or anything, but I also did skip most of the description scenes, so take that with a grain of salt. But the romance was really good. Like, I liked the romance. But the book follows two serial killers who only kill serial killers. So it kind of makes you, like, empathize with them because they're only killing bad people. And then they start this game where a third party that, like, picks someone for them to kill, and then whoever kills that serial killer first wins for that year, and they kind of compete and like rush against each other to win that year. And like they see each other once a year, but then they start talking a lot more and they start wanting to see each other more, and then yeah, things go from there. And I liked it. I thought it was good, and I want to read the second one. It comes out this month actually. I don't know when exactly in June, but I'll put it up here. And I think you should give it a try. If you're not normally a dark romance person, I still think you might like it because I'm usually not a dark romance person and I really liked it. So definitely give it a try, but also look at the content and trigger warnings because there's a lot. Then I actually listened to Gone Girl, but I do have the physical copy. My mom got this for me at like Goodwill or something. This one shook me to my core. Literally, I was listening to the audiobook. The audiobook's 20 hours, by the way. I was like, how is a thriller 20 hours? Like, I feel like that is a lot. And I was like listening to it and I was getting close to like, I don't even know, halfway maybe. And I was like, how is there still 10 hours left? Like, something either goes crazy or this is gonna be really boring. And it was not really boring, let me tell you that. Something crazy happened. And I was sad. Listening to this. I was listening to it any spare moment I could because I was like, I need to know. Like, this is crazy. And then I watched the movie because it's also a movie. Me and my boyfriend watched it. It's so funny to like read the book and know what to expect, and then you watch like a movie or like someone you know reads the book and you're just like waiting to see like their reaction, like wanting to know what they think, and then like they're telling you their theories and you're just like, it's so funny. That was me. The movie was actually pretty good. Like, it stuck to the book mostly. Like, there's a few things that changed. Like, obviously there's always a few things, but I feel like it wasn't a bad book to movie adaptation, and I really liked, I think it's Ben Affleck, I don't know actors, but he did a really good job. Basically, you're following this guy, I think his name's Ben. Like, there's too many people I read about in a month, you know. Oh, Nick. Don't know where I got Ben from. This follows Nick, who comes home with his like front door wide open. He's like yelling for his wife. The living room is all a disaster and he doesn't know where his wife is. So then he calls the cops and he reports her missing, and then you basically go from there and you see like the whole investigation take place. Like, obviously the husband is questioned and you're just learning about their marriage and their lives, and you're learning about her life as well, because we also get the past perspective of her diary entries. So you're reading her diary entries about their past, and it's just leading up to the future and the present, and then you're just also following this investigation, and it's crazy. If you haven't read this yet, go read it please, because this was so good and it absolutely rocked me. And I gave this one 4 stars because I was entertained the whole time. Like, I never wanted to put it down. I just needed to keep knowing what was going to happen. And I liked it a lot. Then I listened to The Villa, which was another thriller. This one is more of like a summary thriller, which I've never read like a summary thriller. I don't believe I have. I want to try to read more this summer, so if you have any recommendations, please let me know. This one, like, it was just okay. Like, it was good. I just could not connect to the, I think it was 1974 and something, the older timeline, because I feel like you're just kind of thrown into that timeline, and like learning all the characters was kind of hard, and like remembering their names, because I was listening to it and I feel like sometimes when there's so many characters introduced at once in an audiobook, I can kind of get confused. I just really didn't connect to those characters, but I did like the present timeline. I like the 2 characters that you're following, like these 2 best friends that go to this villa to have a vacation, and then they find out that there was a murder there like years ago, which is the old timeline that you're listening to. So you learn about what took place back then, and then you're also seeing the present where these two best friends have a lot of problems as well, and just like jealousy and things like that like in their lives. But I did like the parallels between the old timeline and the new timeline, and like the similarities between these friends and sisters and stuff. But I just feel like the ending was kind of okay. And then for my one DNF this month was The Book Eaters, which I have tried to read twice now. First, I tried to read the physical copy because I got it and was like, I really am excited for like this premise. I think it's super different. Started reading it and I couldn't get into it. I thought maybe it was the writing because I was still like pretty early on to the book. So then this month I switched to the audiobook and got to 50%, and I was like, no, I just really don't like the actual book. So I am DNFing it. It's just like the writing is hard to get into. I feel like it is like third person, and it just like as an audiobook, it's like one person speaking, which it makes sense because it is kind of like in Devon's point of view, who is the main character, but like it doesn't switch voices for different characters that are speaking from their point of view, so it's like really confusing. But it's about Devon, who is a book eater, and she has a son who is actually a mind eater, which are like not as common, but they actually have to survive off of human minds and they can't survive off of eating books, and obviously that's an issue. So she's trying to find like this medicine that helps him not crave human minds and can live off of just eating books. And I thought it was going to be like super interesting and a nice new type of genre that I don't usually read. And unfortunately it was just really boring, and I feel like there's probably a lot of interesting themes and like things going on in this book that like would be more interesting if you like to like decode those types of things and like read about that. But for me, I'm like, just give it to me straight. I don't know, I feel like it was way more about Devon and like her struggles, and then can barely describe it to you, and I read half the book, you know? I don't know, I'm just gonna say I didn't really like it, and I'm DNFing it, and that's that. And I'm sorry if you love this book. I can see like and appreciate what it was, but it just wasn't for me. Well, those are all the books that I've read in the month of May. Please let me know if you've read any of these. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your opinions. Tell me some book recs if you like thought of like, oh, she might like this book like while watching this. Please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. I'll be posting a lot of reading vlogs in the month of June, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you really, really soon in my next video.